trust Google with our data and life, and we don't have any second thoughts when using them. But why? Welcome to Insider. In this episode, we will be dissecting how Google built their consumer trust and what you can learn from them. Anytime we have a question, we need to understand a theory, or simply browsing the web, we Google it. We've become so attached to Google, and when you actually think about it, Google might know more than your family. They know your name, where you live, who your friends are, and what plans you are making, what you're obsessed with or who you're obsessed with. And lastly, they might even know your secrets that you want to keep hidden. So what do we expect from Google to trust Google? It appears that most see Google as a search engine. You see, we've gotten used to the fact that we know Google will give us transparent results, relevant results that you know you can rely on. And let's admit it, Google is the best search engine out there. And we trust Google because they do not sell us hardware, nor downplay competitors' results. This is a list of data that Google actually collects from us from their search, Android, and Google Assistant. Don't panic just yet, because you have nearly full control over all of this at your account. You can turn off everything you don't want Google to know. Now you must be wondering, what do they do with all this information? Maps, the most common places you go to, builds a picture of what things you search for. And on YouTube, based on your video selection, Google gives you recommendations. And Google Assistant, of course, if voice match is enabled, from Gmail, Google Photos, Calendar, and more. It shows it in your private voice link search results, so you don't have to do the digging yourself. Just search for things like, where did I book my hotel? Or where are my photos at the beach? Advertisers, you can use Google to target advertisements via demographics, location, gender, interests, device type, and the list goes on. 96% of Google's revenue is from this closed-loop advertising. In 2018, Google's ad revenue was actually $116 billion. Why do we trust Google? The idea of handing over responsibility to a cloud service provider doesn't really sit well with most people. Unless that provider is Google. Nobody pushes cloud computing harder than Google. Gmail, Google Docs, Google Apps, Google this and Google that. It's all based on a framework of remote resources and an enormous blob of processing that's been tuned to spit out whatever we happen to be looking for, accept whatever documents we create, and send email and IM messages. And unlike so many other cloud service providers, Google seems to be accepted in this role, while others inspire skepticism. Google keeps moving forward. They do not seem to stop when it comes to technology. Google Places is placing cameras in public places and establishments, and this is for our comfort. For example, in a restaurant, you'll actually get to see the interior of the restaurant and then decide if this is the place you want to, let's say, celebrate your birthday. The thing is, everyone is okay with Google doing this. However, if another big tech company did the same thing, people's reaction might not be exactly the same. Google is the most powerful force on the internet today, and they've convinced the world that they aren't out there to steal your data. They step lightly and presume nothing. Even though they're developing with their technology each and every minute, their homepage is still something that stays the same. And it's not because they haven't tried to change it. Because they did, and the internet exploded with outrage, and the situation was quickly reversed. It's because people simply feel more comfortable with it. Going back to Google developing their technology, every minute they've implemented another feature that makes sure we find our path and destination. Google created an animated guide of buildings and streets, which is surprisingly exactly what we needed. When you're lost in a metropolis that you've come to visit, this can be very useful. I've used it myself. SEO Clarity did a survey where they asked 1,057 American citizens how they feel about social media and search platforms. 65.7% of survey respondents specified that they trust Google the most, and 1 in 5 participants agreed that they will always trust the tech giant's results. However, not all responses were positive. SEO Clarity's survey results might make Google feel like they have the upper hand, but they still have a lot of work to do. Now, if we take a look at Facebook as a comparison, we can clearly see that Google tops trust when it comes to big tech companies. Facebook, with 37.8% of Americans surveyed stating that they trusted them respectively. Perhaps documentaries such as The Great Hack and The Social Dilemma have increased concerns over social media platforms, assessing and selling our data, or even using it to target us with specific content to achieve their goals and sway opinions, as Cambridge Analytica did a few years back. For many years, virtually all internet advertising revenue has been dominated by two companies, Facebook and Google. However, the companies could hardly be more different. In comparison to Facebook, which has lost a lot of consumer trust due to what I mentioned previously, Google has won over people's trust by facilitating navigation through digital and physical domains. And this is going to pay huge dividends in an AI-driven world. Google is the master of the web and controls the world's most popular operating system. However, it knows very little about our social relationships, and despite many attempts, has failed to launch a strong social network. Whilst Facebook is the master of, well, most of social media, let's say, or the massive service it now owns, the whole pack, Facebook, Instagram, and Messenger, all services with over 1 billion members. A lot of focus has been on what Facebook did wrong, and how they are trying to clean up and make things more transparent now. And what focus has been on Google, you might ask? Well, there's a lot to be said on Google's outstanding performance on the corporate image level. Soon after Google established trust in the digital world by routing people online to its destination, it strengthened its trust in the physical world through Google Maps. It also helps ensure that consumers can access their email and even more personally access their photos by providing generous storage allocation, thereby establishing trust with Gmail and Google Photos. To summarize, Google is the highest ranking tech company when it comes to trust. Google has spent years building a diverse customer base, and they've developed loyal customers because of their transparent image. Their business model can be known to be very trustworthy since they have never hidden their intentions or their business model. And lastly, Google has earned more trust where others have lost far more trust. Therefore, there's a lot to learn from Google. And one thing we know for sure is that if you are transparent with your customers, then they provide you with their trust. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please go and give it a thumbs up. And of course, if you aren't subscribed to our channel yet, then go and click that subscribe button. Insider out.